5 eco-activists have been jailed between 4 and 5 years after causing terrible disruption on the M25 over 4 days in November 2022. The protesters had been found guilty last week of conspiracy to cause a public nuisance after taking part in conspiring to cause a gridlock. Now, they were handed jail terms by the judge, who told them that they had crossed the line from concerned campaigners to fanatics. But do they deserve years in prison, or do you think this might turn them into martyrs? Get your calls in for this now. Just a reminder of what those queues looked like. Peter, 4 to 5 years for a protest?
Fantastic. I was absolutely delighted when the news of the sentences came through yesterday, because finally this idiotic, pathetic, entitled cult members had got a sentence deserving of their crime. And it was made all the more delightful for me yesterday because I was sat next to a flaky criminal defence lawyer when the news came through, and he really got his knickers in a twist over the length of the sentences. What joy.
But 4 to 5 years does sound like an extraordinary length of time for somebody that was doing a protest.
Well, they're using legislation that the Conservatives brought in. And look, you know, none of this would have actually happened had any of the Conservative ministers at the time decided to sit down with any of the protesters and actually discuss what could be done. You know, a lot of the Just Stop Oil protesters, they go out and they do these dangerous stunts because they felt that they weren't being heard, and they felt that they were being ignored. And what other way? I mean, it's very, very British, I would say, actually, to go out and exercise your right to protest, and it's extremely draconian to then throw that person into prison.
Yeah, don't you think that these punishments will make people more reluctant to protest in future, and is that really the kind of society you want to live in, Peter?
Well, if it makes people more reluctant to block motorways like we can see here and prevent people from getting to hospital appointments, funerals, catch flights to go on holiday, go about their everyday working business, or even go about enjoying themselves in their retirement years, then it's a very good thing that they get banged up, and I hope this is a precedent that will be followed.
Not only did it cost the economy 700,000 upwards, but it also cost the police 1.1 million apparently just to police these protests. Well, but when it comes to the climate crisis, doesn't their cause kind of outweigh any of this disruption? When you put it into perspective, missing a hospital appointment, missing a funeral, you know, might not be as big a deal as the planet ending.
Missing a funeral of a loved one?
Yeah.
You think that's like an irrelevancy?
I'm just suggesting that if we are all
set aside and not bothered about?
No, not at all, but I'm saying if the alternative is we all die, then putting it into perspective, you know, might have made the judge give them a more lenient sentence.
No, I don't think it's comparable in any way, shape or form. There is a way through which to campaign, to lobby, to have your voice heard, and to protest lawfully. There are many, many ways you can do that, but not by doing what this cult did, by deliberately setting out to disrupt the lives of millions.
How would you like them to protest?
No, it doesn't. You can have a protest march, you can have a demonstration, you can have a gathering, all of which can be done with the authorities completely lawfully, and that's the correct way to do it, together with lobbying of MPs, other pressure groups. That's how change is affected, by making friends, by winning people over to your side of the argument, not by doing what these fools did time and time again, which was to turn so many people against them. They shot themselves in the foot repeatedly, they irritated people to the nth degree, and yesterday was a day to savour.
But Peter, I hate to say this, but they did actually get what they asked for, because we've now got a Labour government that have promised not to renew any oil and gas licences, so oil has actually been stopped. So maybe they achieved something.
Then I look forward to hearing about the dismantlement of Just Stop Oil if their aims have been achieved.
OK, well, we're joined now by Just Stop Oil campaigner Adrian Johnson. Adrian, thank you very much for joining us. Were you at the court sentencing?
No, I wasn't. To put this into context, I've been thinking the best way to explain it to yourself, or your panel and your viewers, is to go to the 2011 novel, right? It's called The Martian by Andy Weir. The opening starts like this. I'm pretty much effed, and he uses the whole word, yeah? I'm pretty much effed. That's my considered opinion. effed, because he realizes how serious his situation is and he gets on with it and he does something about it. That's exactly what motivated the people to take action in 2022. And that's exactly what they were trying to bring into the courtroom over this trial. But the judge repeatedly shut down the truth. They were not allowed to give the whole truth. It was a show trial. It was rigged from the start. They didn't get their chance to explain that we are, to paraphrase, pretty much effed. That's the considered opinion of the scientific body of the planet.
Adrian, I've got loads of questions to ask you. I suppose, first of all, are you friends with some of the protesters that were jailed? Did you know any of them personally?
No, I don't know them personally.
And were you involved in any of the M25 protests?
Not personally, no.
So have you ever faced any kind of legal action involved in protesting?
Yeah, I've been arrested 7 times. I've had 5 trials against me. I haven't been found guilty, though.
And you've never been found guilty? You know, when you say we were in a terrible state of affairs, I think a lot of people would agree with that statement when it comes to the climate crisis. I think you have a lot of people that are equally as concerned, but feel like maybe the way you take on the protests might not be the appropriate course of action. Peter says you have to make friends rather than alienate people, and Just Stop Oil has alienated people maybe from the cause.
But that is the problem, Storm. That is the problem, because if we don't listen to the science, if we don't start from that point that we are pretty much effed, then we don't get it. And it seems disproportionate, the action that was taken. It seems out of balance. But as you said yourself, in terms of the proportionality, we are literally talking about the end of life on our beautiful planet. So therefore, delaying some traffic, as horrible as that is for the people caught up in that, don't take me wrong, I empathize and I understand. Yes, however, when you put those into balance,
I understand you. I understand what you're saying, and that actually the negatives in holding up traffic don't outweigh the negatives that will happen if we allow the climate crisis to continue as it is. I understand that premise. What I am saying is, in order to get all those people in those traffic jams behind you and with you in terms of your movement and what you want to achieve, is blocking the road and stopping them from getting on to their day-to-day activities the best way of doing that. I mean, I think you're turning people against the cause at times rather than bringing them in, maybe.
Okay, look at history. Look at how positive social change is won. It's won by disrupting the public. Peter, you talked about all of the legitimate things that we can do. The problem is they are ineffective when the situation is as serious as it is and as urgent as it is.
So with that in mind then, Adrian, what do you think about this sentence that's been handed out? 4 to 5 years. It was quite shocking, actually, to find that out. That's a surprisingly long sentence.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally disproportionate. I mean, the United Nations Special Rapporteur for Environmental Defenders was present in court. He's issued a public statement. He's talking about this sentencing and the judicial system in general in the UK being a nightmare, his words, and that this was punitive and that it was out of balance. And yesterday he said something absolutely chilling. He said this, that yesterday marked a dark day for peaceful environmental protest, the protection of environmental defenders, and indeed anyone concerned with the exercise of their fundamental freedom in the United Kingdom. So this is our beautiful country.
And so do you believe that this will put people off protesting in future?
Well, that is the risk, isn't it? And the United Nations Special Rapporteur has spoken at length about this because it is designed to have a chilling effect. These laws were brought in with the steering of the oil lobby and the fossil fuel industry. It is designed to put us off. I'm not sure that it will, though.
I'm actually talking about in your ranks, so not what the UN say. I'm asking how you feel amongst Just Stop Oil protesters. Do you think that this sentencing will actually put many of them off pulling a stunt like this in the future?
I can only speak for myself. Everybody else has got to make their minds up. No, it's not going to put me off. And Peter was saying that he's looking forward to Just Stop Oil disbanding because we've achieved what we want. We know that the government needs to go further, and so our demand is now that they sign and set up an internationally legally binding treaty to end all fossil fuel use by 2030. That they work with other countries and they assist other countries in doing this in a just and fair and urgent way.
Adrian, if you could stay with us, I just want to take some calls now and see how people at home feel about this sentencing. 4 to 5 years for protests on the M25. Gillian from London, You're up first. What do you think? Was that steep? Has it made them martyrs? Are you happy about it?
Well, I think 4 or 5 years is much too is very harsh. It's disproportionate. But I think the eco protesters should really target places like the oil companies and the dirty oil companies, in particular, to try to get their point across, rather than lying in the street and holding up all the traffic and sometimes ambulances and lorries and things to people who need to get to work.
I really appreciate your point, Gillian.
And it's going to turn people against them. That's going to turn more people against them, which it has done. And I think really, yes, I think they should target the oil companies
you mentioned that, and it was a point I was trying to make to Adrian, actually, is that potentially targeting the people you want to galvanise and get behind your cause is maybe not the best approach, but other protesters have tried targeting the oil firms. They get done for damage to property. There have been protests directly to politicians. They get hauled over the coals for you breaching property rights and all those sorts of things. Where do you want these protesters, and who do you want these protesters to target, Peter? It's very hard to have a protest now that is loud enough to get media attention that you're not going to get backlash.
In recent months and years, Just Stop Oil have repeatedly, and I mean repeatedly, said that their aims was to stop the government issuing new licences for gas and oil. That was announced in the King's speech. That is done. But look what Adrian did. Oh no, he's moved the goalposts. Now their claims are something different. So those sentences were handed down yesterday because this cult, the enemy of the people, is not going to stop. It says one thing, achieves that, then it comes up with something else. They are clearly the enemy of the working people.
You've called them a cult several times. What do you think makes them a cult?
Their behaviour, their attitudes, their utter contempt for normal people trying to go about their normal lives, doing their business.
Adrian, do you want to come back on that at all?
Sure. We're not a cult, Peter. And although this is difficult to see and difficult to understand, we are doing this in support and in the protection of ordinary people. And we're having to do this and step in because the government is not leading the way. And yes, we do need to lead the way. We do need to tell them what they need to do because they're not doing it themselves.
Gillian, thank you very much for your call. Mark from Berkshire, what's your thoughts on these sentences, 4 to 5 years?
Hello, morning. Morning, Storm. Morning, everyone. Well, I think it's a disgrace, to be quite honest. The sentencing is just so out of it. And I hear Peter talking there, and Peter, all due respect to you, we are men of around the same age. I may be a little older than you. So from my point of view, as a black person, with your attitude, you'd want to still own me as a slave.
What?
Then I would still have to, because without protest, I would still be your slave.
No, but I don't think... Mark, I'm going to have to let Peter come back on that, but I don't think Peter's saying no to protests. He's just saying it should be done in a more peaceful manner. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, I know. What I was trying to get to, was that...
he wouldn't want me to have the vote either.
No, what I'm saying, for example, if you say, okay, here's a park, and in that park, you can protest. Don't disturb anyone. Don't disrupt any traffic. You go into this park and you do your protest.
Okay,
nothing will happen.
Yeah, Mark, I'm running out of time, but I just want Peter to have a right of reply on that comment.
For somebody to suggest that I would want anybody as a slave is so insulting and beneath contempt.
But the idea is that
I'm not going to say anything more. That's just... that's beyond the pale.
Mark, thank you for your call all the same. Thank you to Adrian Johnson as well for joining us on that conversation after the break. We're going to take more calls on this, actually. OK, we're taking more of your calls now on whether the jailed eco-protesters are heroes or villains. 0207 862 2222 is the number. Jerry from Exeter, 4 to 5 years. Do you think that's appropriate?
I do, yes. I think there are many good causes for demonstration in this country. The fact that they've targeted a motorway where cars travel at dangerous speeds and put people's lives at risk, I think basically does mean that the crime justifies the time. You've got people like Black Lives Matter, Fathers for Justice, Black Lives Matter. What if everybody at the protest jumped on a motorway at some point or stopped a motorway at some point so that further down the line, you've got cars that are potentially backing into other cars? It's just putting people's lives at risk, and it's just not necessary.
Well, it's certainly dangerous. I think a motorbike, a policeman came off his motorbike, but I don't remember hearing anything about any serious collisions in this scenario. Jerry,
it's got the potential, just because it didn't cause it, it has the potential to cause risk to human lives. And that is why I think the crime justifies that length of time. You can't put people's lives at risk. And undoubtedly, people's lives were put at risk.
But there are a lot of other crimes that do the exact same that wouldn't get even half that sentence, Jerry. You've got to remember our courts are backlogged, our jails are full, and we're going to fill them with people that are trying to stop us burning as much fossil fuel.
The whole conspiracy...
Not now you're not, because you've sent a clear message to anybody protesting that interferes with things that can cause risk to human life will get put away for a big time. Yes, there are other crimes out there. And yes, you could be filling the jails, but you are now sending a deterrent. Anybody who thinks, right, I'm going to jump on and protest on a motorway, oh, actually, maybe I won't because I know I'm going inside for 5 years. Well, it's stopping and it's a deterrent. I
did just ask Adrian there, who's part of Just Stop Oil, whether it would stop in, and he said no.
Again, once 4 or 5 of them are banged up, there's nobody left to organise it. They will peter out and they will stop.
All right, Jerry, thank you very much for your call. Deborah from Essex, what's your thoughts? 4 or 5 years, is that probably fits the crime?
I think it's scandalous. These people are heroes. When you've got pedos that rape and murder children that don't get 5 years, if sentenced at all. I mean, 5 years, we're not even in a democracy anymore. These people in future will be viewed as the suffragettes are viewed today. In their time, they were demonised, but they gave women the vote, and they are now recognised as heroes internationally. But all I can say is, what can you expect with a judiciary that protected Savile? The system is so corrupt.
OK, well, I don't know where you're getting the judiciary protecting Savile from, but when we go to these protesters, most people believe that there is a climate crisis. So does the ends justify the means? You know, and can we have these protests happening every day? If we don't give them tough enough sentences, there's no deterrent.
Well, you see, it's the government that's wrong because they're not doing anything to help the climate. And by doing what they do, these heroes are bringing the crisis to the forefront. They have no choice, just the same as the suffragettes had no choice.
I mean, it certainly gets people talking, that's for sure, but as a previous caller said, it could put people's lives at risk, and that's not what we want to encourage. Deborah, thank you very much for your call. Fred from Norfolk, what do you think about the 4 to 5 years?
Good morning, how are you?
I'm grand, thank you, and yourself?
Very well, thank you.
Good, now that we've got that out of the way, what do you think?
I think the sentence is just.
OK.
For the simple reason that England is a very small polluter, and we'll go along and we'll ban, petrol cars, we'll have all electric, all everything else, but you still have big polluters in the world. And with global warming, it comes across around the world on the winds and everything else. So I don't know why we're paying such a big issue to it. People going about.
I suppose, Fred, is there an argument to say we have quite a reputation on the global scale? People will be looking at us to see what we're doing about certain things, and don't we want to be seen to be doing our bit as far as the climate's concerned? On top of that, actually, a lot of people just die from pollution in this country already, and I'm not just talking about England, I'm talking about Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. And actually, having fewer cars on the road wouldn't be too bad a thing. Not using as much fossil fuel wouldn't be such a bad thing for the environment and for the air that we all breathe day to day.
Yeah, but you will do. If we were all electric cars and electric everything else, you're still going to get pollution coming across from the countries that do really pollute. We have Saharan sand coming from Africa.
OK, yes, when it comes to the climate crisis, it's going to impact globally, absolutely. When it comes to pollution, the closer you are to a motorway with thousands of cars driving there, burning petrol, the more impact you're going to have from pollution, Fred. So the pollution impact will be a lot less if we stop driving quite as much.
Yeah, but we're going that way. You just, you evolve into electrics.
Okay.
Electric cars, heat pumps, and everything else electric. It takes time.
I think we get carried away anyway. We're talking about the sentencing, but you basically think that it doesn't really matter. We shouldn't have to change anything because our impact's going to be minimal anyway on the global scale, and these people are just interrupting people's lives.
Yes, very minimal. Okay. And, you can't go around. We are slowly changing, and I would like these people on the panel, what it is, we're changing. It takes time. And we are a small country, and nobody takes any notice of us. If a Chinese person, Chinese government, don't give 2 iotas about the UK.
That very well could be true. Fred, thank you very much for your call. Let's talk about something else now. I mean, still on the ilk of